Mira Business FM. The sound of success.
This is Mira Business FM. It's the morning drive with me, Tim Elliott, and we're tracking a major leap in global AI infrastructure now. The UAE's confirmed its massive Stargate UAE data center, and it's designed to power the next generation of AI. It's going to cost over $30 billion, and it'll span more than 19 square kilometres in Abu Dhabi. Now, the first phase of what is an unprecedented project is supported by global tech giants, including OpenAI, Nvidia, Oracle, Cisco, and SoftBank, and it's expected to be operational later this year. So what does it mean for the UAE, the global AI race? And how could it reshape technology infrastructure worldwide? AI expert Vasudha Khandeparkar joins us over Zoom this morning. Vasudha, it's good to have you back on the show.
Pleasure to be here, Tim.
Thank you for joining us. So just how significant is a $30 billion plus investment in AI infrastructure by global standards?
By global standards, I think it's very significant. If you look at the announcements in terms of global AI infrastructure projects, they're usually around the 10 to $15 billion threshold, and which is half of what has been committed over here. And most of them are built incrementally. They don't consider the entire ecosystem. What the UAE is signaling at this point is a strong commitment that we're making towards AI and understanding that the technology layer is going to help us establish foundations for how the country is going to grow and how we are going to become not just a regional powerhouse, but almost a global powerhouse for this technology. And actually, a way to sort of think about it is if we sort of go back to previous industrial revolutions or points in time which have resulted in huge impact change, which we're still seeing today. If you think about, say, the Industrial Revolution, railroads were built then. They were expensive. They were not something that all countries invested in. But those were almost those long-term horizon bets that reshaped economies. They still have an impact today, and they still deliver value today. This infrastructure investment around Stargate is in that same category. This is a very, very long-term bet. And we're now signaling that it's no longer about adoption. We're going to own how we not just use this technology, but how we leverage it, how we build it, and how we grow the country and the economy using these foundational layers.
Large-scale computing power is now seen as critical national infrastructure, isn't it? But what is it about the Stargate project? What does it signal about the UAE's long-term AI strategy?
So you're absolutely right. Large-scale compute is, critical. Think about just our journeys to, you to the studio, me to even getting on the Zoom call, everyone who's listening in from the point that you got out of bed to getting into the car and, tuning in. We've generated massive volumes of data, and every single business or entity that we interact with, we've become used to the fact that we want them to leverage the data that we've generated to almost make things easier for us, make things more appealing, applicable, personalized to us. And that's the reason why when we look at Stargate, it is that shift from adoption to ownership. We're not just consuming AI models, services that are built outside. We want access to the data that's being generated in the country here. We want to process that data. We want to build models on that data so we can understand cultural cues, nuances, and we can build responses that are more suited to the population who live here, work here, contribute to the country. This is strategy that sets us up for the next few decades almost. It's not that we are creating something that is going to give a short-term return. We're creating large-scale infrastructure which gives us options. How do we want to engage with future technology, how will we adopt it? We have the foundations built and we can now scale on those foundations. We have resilience that comes as a result, and so we can focus purely on that strategic growth rather than sort of worrying about whether or not we have the foundational elements to enable us to leapfrog and achieve the goals that the country has set for themselves.
It, I'm interested in what hosting this kind of data center does for the UAE's position in the global kind of AI race, if I can use that term, because this is the UAE reaching out, isn't it, Vasudha? Omar Al-Alama, Minister of State for AI, Digital Economy and Remote work applications, said this week that the Emirates is keen to help other countries with their sovereign AI needs. That's going to be a more and more critical issue, clearly. This project is described as supporting sovereign AI. What does that mean in practical terms?
So there's two elements over here. One is when we're just looking at sovereign AI, essentially what we're signaling is that sensitive data, so if you think about national security data, healthcare data, financial information, that is retained, deployed, trained locally. And where the government wants to initiate controls, they have that oversight over how the data is used, how the models are trained, and how AI systems can be deployed. When we then think about how we support emerging economies, we are now building we're not just sort of following what everybody else has given us. We're building a platform that we can then sort of offer to other countries as well. So, if you think about the global trade hubs, for example, they are built on infrastructure like rail and road networks. They've become hubs and they still remain hubs for trade and industry today. And that's what this AI infrastructure does. These centers where we've got this foundational infrastructure available become hubs for innovation, for research, for deployment. And that's what we can offer other emerging economies who may not have the access to, whether it's space, whether it's energy, whether it's the funding that's required, whether it's the ability to bring all of these large players and companies like OpenAI and Nvidia to the table. The UAE is able to do that. So we can support the domestic needs that we have, which we can all clearly see are growing, but we can also allow these emerging neighboring countries and emerging economies to start leveraging this infrastructure and build sort of similar capabilities and offerings for their own citizens.
Can I ask you about the partnerships that I mentioned? Companies like OpenAI, Nvidia, SoftBank, etc. What role are they playing? Are they going to play in making the project? I mean, this is a project of some scale. What part did they have to play in making it viable?
When we look at any data or technology project, all organizations always have this debate around build versus buy. So when you kind of think about a project of this scale, those partnerships are critical because the infrastructure alone, the ability to build that infrastructure isn't enough. We need advice, we need support, and we need guidance as well from people who've been there, who know how best to leverage these technologies. That deep expertise across hardware, software, model development, how operations should work on a daily basis is present in these countries because they have, and in these companies because they have essentially built some of these foundational models that all of us are using today. These partnerships allow the UAE to reduce the risk that comes along with the process, allows us to learn at scale, allows us to learn at pace. We can learn from the mistakes that they've made, the missteps that have come along the way, and we can make sure that what we're building learns from those and is something that's a lot more resilient and suited for us. And it also makes sure that we can see or get a sneak preview into what the future of AI holds. We can then build infrastructure that's more suited to these advanced workloads and we can start sort of baselining ourselves for the future rather than the best of what is available presently.
Quick word on a couple of the challenges. Are there risks in concentrating such a huge amount of AI compute capacity in one location?
Of course, I think with any project of this scale, there will always be risks. I mean, operational risks, I don't even need to sort of detail because when we look at a project of this size, the operational complexity goes with the territory. But of course, there are geopolitical, environmental risks as well that come with it. Energy demand, for example, is a significant challenge, but that's where I think the UAE has been very considered in its approach. We've done sustainability first. We've looked at how this impacts us, how it impacts the country. And then we've put those governance layers in place already over the past couple of years, particularly in the run up and the post COP28 era. And as a result, we now have those layers and we can start thinking about the integration with national power grids, energy strategies, how we deploy more efficient technologies, because we've already built those foundations. Whenever any project of this scale is built, we do need strong oversight. We will need architecture capabilities which are diversified for different purposes. And it looks not just at short-term gains, it's long-term planning. How is it going to benefit the individuals who live in this country and work in this country? So even from a data perspective, we'll need to build regulation around how data is protected. Yes, we have data protection regulations, we have consumer protection regulations, but things like AI safety, what data can and can't be used for what type of modeling, how data flows across countries, particularly if we're supporting other geographies in leveraging this capability. All of these challenges are manageable, but there is a huge amount of coordination and conversation that's currently happening between policymakers, industries, and regulators, which will continue throughout the lifetime of this project.
Vasudha, we've got about 60 seconds left. I just wanted to pick you up on something that you mentioned there, the impact, kind of locally, I think, here in the UAE. Just your thoughts on what Stargate could have in terms of impact on innovation, on jobs, on economic growth?
I think there will be a huge impact. So we're not just again going to measure what the impact or the success is around, how much this facility is used. We have seen step change in how public services are provided here in the UAE. Those public service outcomes will improve by leaps and bounds. Research and innovation, all of the topics that we all hope have the infrastructure support, healthcare research, for example, now suddenly can be accelerated, particularly and trained for data and population across this country. And we're also almost generating new job families, new job types, and hosting requirements for new skills which are enabled by this infrastructure. So I think the success that we will have across skills development, the growth in the complex and high value work that we do in the country will show how the strategy impacts both the people in the UAE as well as globally in a massive manner.
Vasudha Khandeparkar is an AI expert talking about the Stargate AI data center planned for Abu Dhabi opening later this year, $30 billion worth of investment. Vasudha, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate you. This is Mirror Business FM.